Do you feel a personal guilt for the way that people of color have been treated in the United States?
I do not feel personal. I mean, to a very, I, kind of a weird degree, yeah. I mean, because I'm a person who benefits from a system that puts them down while raising me up in certain ways, yeah, I do feel guilty. Unfortunately, I think that because we are in a system that is hard to change, there's not much that I can do within the system to reverse that. But I don't necessarily feel as much a guilt as much as a responsibility to not abuse my privileges and try to extend whatever privilege I have to other people.
And how do you think people of color have suffered in the system or suffer in the system now?
A varying amount of ways.
Can you give examples?
Yeah, educational inequity, more white students being accepted into schools, more Asian students being accepted into schools than people of darker skin tones. I mean, it's one of those things where you're like, oh yeah, there's a ton of things that I could say, but you can't think of them off the top of your head. But other things like just how you're treated on the street. I mean, most people don't really pay me any sort of attention on the street, whereas, I can see if somebody's walking down the street who's black and has a hoodie on, they're going to be treated a way different way. Just walking on the street, being observed by the people around them as more of a threat than I am.
Okay. Do you feel a personal guilt for the way people of color have been treated in the United States?
I don't feel personal guilt because I've been raised by very civil rights activism has been in my family, so I've been raised very in a way that I try and spread the type of equality that I would like to see everywhere. However, I do feel it's more kind of like secondhand, I guess, guilt, especially if I see someone of color being treated in a very unfair way.
Feel a personal guilt for the way that people of color have historically and currently are treated in this country?
Yeah, kind of, because I benefit from it.
How do you benefit from it?
My dad works in oil. He was picked from a small town in Scotland to come to California specifically and work in oil. And if he had more melanin, he would not have gotten that job, and I would not be here today.
So you're saying he was picked over people who were already here but were looked over because they were people of color?
Who weren't even looked over, who weren't even considered, yeah, I would say that.
Do you feel guilt about the way people of color have been treated in this country? Do you feel a personal guilt? And should white people feel guilty about it?
I don't really feel a personal guilt for the... No, I don't feel personal guilt. It's like people of color, like, if I do something, if I have a personal interaction with someone and I treat them bad, I may have guilt, whatever their color their skin may be. So maybe I have guilt from that. I don't have guilt where they have this like white guilt stuff that they're talking about. People way back then. I don't have any guilt from that.
So no collective guilt?
No collective guilt. This is an individualist society. Keep that collective stuff back in communist Russia.